What if the oldest story ever written is not being read the way it was meant to be? Before governments, before religion as we know it, before history was recorded in ink, there were marks pressed into clay, simple symbols, wedge-shaped impressions left behind by a civilization that lived and disappeared over 4,000 years ago. And in those symbols are stories of creation, of gods descending from the sky, of humanity's beginning, not as rulers of Earth, but as something else. Servants, creations, or something engineered. For decades, one man claimed that those tablets were not mythology at all, but a record of beings not from this world, a lost planet, a visiting race, and a version of human history that was never meant to survive. But here's the problem. Those tablets still exist, and when you read them carefully, they don't say what you've been told they say. So tonight, we go back to the source, not the theory, not the interpretation, not the myth built around the myth, but the tablets themselves. Because the real mystery is not what the Sumerians wrote, it's what happened when we started rewriting it. Welcome back to UFO to UAP, the Disclosure Report. I'm your host, Matt Tones. Remember to subscribe and share this episode, which is titled The Tablets, What the Sumerians Really Wrote. Tonight's episode takes us away from modern hearings, away from Pentagon offices, and back to the oldest written records humanity has ever left behind. Not rumors, not testimony, not classified files, but clay tablets, pressed with symbols over 4,000 years ago. Because long before radar sightings and congressional briefings, something else existed. A written record of how ancient civilizations understood the sky, the gods, and their place in the universe. And at the center of tonight's investigation is a question. Did those ancient texts describe advanced beings, or have modern interpretations reshaped mythology into something it was never meant to be? To answer that, we need to separate what the tablets actually say from what has been said about them. So, the first written record. To understand the story, we begin with Sumerian civilization, often described as the cradle of civilization, located in what is now southern Iraq. This culture gave us something that changed human history forever: cuneiform, a writing system pressed into clay using a stylus, creating wedge-shaped marks that record everything from trade and law to mythology and cosmology. These tablets were not discovered all at once. Over the past 2 centuries, archaeologists have unearthed tens of thousands of them, many fragmentary, many incomplete, and many still being translated even today. And this is important. The tablets are not a single story. They are a collection of myths, hymns, administrative records, and epics, written across centuries, sometimes by different cultures, including Akkadian and Babylonian scribes who inherited and adapted Sumerian traditions. Among them, certain narratives stand out: the creation of humanity, the relationship between humans and gods, the flood story, strikingly similar to later biblical accounts, and repeated references to powerful beings known as the Anunnaki. These are the raw materials. This is the foundation, and on its own, it is already remarkable. But it is what came next that transformed these tablets into something far more controversial. Enter Stitchin. In the late 20th century, a figure emerged who would redefine how many interpreted these ancient texts: Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin was not a traditionally trained Assyriologist. I'm sure I pronounced that one wrong, but he was deeply interested in ancient languages and mythology. And in 1976, he published The 12th Planet, a book that would go on to influence decades of alternative history and UFO theory. His central claim was bold, that the Sumerian tablets were not describing gods in a symbolic or mythological sense, but were instead describing extraterrestrial beings. He focused particularly on the Anunnaki. In mainstream scholarship, the Anunnaki are understood as deities within a mythological framework, part of a pantheon governing aspects of nature, society, and the cosmos. But Sitchin proposed something very different. He argued that the Anunnaki were advanced beings from a distant planet called Nibiru, who came to Earth in ancient times. According to his interpretation, these beings arrived in our solar system. They needed resources, particularly gold, and they genetically engineered early humans to serve as a labor force. He also claimed that the tablets described orbital paths of Nibiru, advanced technology, and interactions between humans and these non-terrestrial visitors. This interpretation was compelling, it was dramatic, and it spread rapidly, but it raises a critical question. Do the tablets actually say this? And this is where we step into translation versus interpretation. And this is where the investigation becomes more precise, because there is a fundamental distinction that must be made. Translation is not the same as interpretation. Mainstream Assyriologists, experts who spend their time studying cuneiform, translate these tablets based on linguistic structure, historical context, and comparative texts. And their translations do not describe spacecraft, alien visitors, or advanced technological intervention. Instead, they describe gods interacting with humans, creation narratives rooted in symbolic language, and cosmological frameworks common to ancient cultures. For example, the word Anunnaki does not translate to extraterrestrial. It is generally understood to mean something closer to offspring of Anu, referring to a lineage of deities. Similarly, Sitchin's reading of planetary systems and orbital mechanics has been widely rejected by scholars who argue that the Sumerians did not possess that level of astronomical precision, and that Sitchin's translations often depart significantly from accepted meanings. This is not a small disagreement, it is a fundamental divide. On one side, a structured academic framework built on linguistic consistency. On the other, a reinterpretation that overlays modern concepts onto ancient texts. That does not automatically make Sitchin wrong, but it does mean his work must be treated as interpretation, not direct translation. So, why has Sitchin's interpretation endured? Why does it continue to influence UFO theory, ancient astronaut narratives, and even modern UAP discussions? The answer lies in something deeper, because the tablets do contain references to beings from the sky, descriptions of creation, and accounts of interaction between humans and higher intelligences. These are powerful ideas, and when viewed through a modern lens, a world shaped by space travel, satellites, and the possibility of extraterrestrial life, they become something else. They become familiar. In other words, we may not be discovering aliens in the tablets, we may be recognizing ourselves in them. Projecting modern understanding back onto ancient frameworks, and this is not unique to Sitchin. It's a pattern seen across cultures. Interpreting ancient Indian texts as descriptions of flying machines, reading biblical visions as encounters with advanced technology, or reframing mythology through the lens of modern science. This gives us a critical insight. The persistence of these ideas may say as much about us as it does about the past. Now we apply the lens that defines this show. What does this mean from an intelligence perspective? And there are three key observations. The source material is real. The tablets exist. They are ancient. They are complex. And they represent humanity's earliest attempt to understand the universe. That alone gives them weight. The interpretation layer is unstable, as there is no single agreed meaning. The tablets are fragmented, translated across languages, and interpreted through different frameworks. This creates space for scholarly analysis, but also speculative reinterpretation. And this is where the pattern repeats. This may be the most important point. Across time, we see the same phenomenon. Ancient texts being reinterpreted through modern belief systems. Today, that system includes extraterrestrial life, advanced technology, and hiddenology, which means the question is no longer just what did the Sumerians believe, but also why do we keep returning to these texts and seeing something new each time? So, where does this leave us? The Sumerian tablets do not provide confirmed evidence of extraterrestrial contact. They do not describe a spacefaring civilization in the way Sitchin propose, but they do something else. They provide a foundation of narrative, a framework through which humans have always tried to understand where we came from, who created us, and whether we are alone. And when those questions remain unanswered, interpretation fills the gap. This has been UFO to UAP, the Disclosure Report. I'm Matt Tones, and sometimes the oldest records don't give us answers. They give us something more powerful, the origin of the questions we're still asking today. Remember to subscribe and tell your mum about our episode. Thanks for listening.